In this video tutorial, I'm going to use conditional statement, if statement, and some other basic and fundamental statement in PHP to code a single page PHP application that allows you to pass different parameters to show different options on the page or different part of a page. So basically what I want to do is this. I want to go ahead and say h1. This is part 1, right? Let's just make it simple for now. 2, 3, and 4, right? So I'll go ahead and I put 2, 3, and 4, right? So let me go ahead and open the terminal. I want to go ahead and use the internal server, PHP server. So I'll go ahead and PHP-s uppercase localhost. I'll put port number 80, so I don't need to change the port anymore. So I'm going to click on the URL, right, to open the page. Here it is, right? The only thing is, because I called my page f1, I need to go and type in f1.php. So now what happened here is, in this page I have 4 h1 tag, which shows part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. But I want to have a control over which part I want to show based on the parameter I'm sending. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So the very first thing is we should be getting the parameters from the parameter list. And this way I use a get method. So I'll go ahead and create a variable. I'll call it part, and simply I'll go ahead and say get part, right? And if this exists, use it. Otherwise, just use let's say 1. Okay, so by default, if the part parameter is passed, I simply receive the part from the parameter list. Otherwise, I'll assign 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we can do here. So I'm going to go ahead and say if part equal 1, do this. Else if part equal 2, show part 2. Else if part equal 3, definitely we're going to show part 3, right? And finally we have else if part equal 4, show part 4, right? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going here and I'll simply would type echo part 1, right? I'm going to copy the rest here. So there we go. Make this one part 2, right? And make it part 3. And finally part 4. Okay. Let me go ahead and remove the HTML that I had before. So let's look at the code. I have a block of code that based on the part will change different things. So if I refresh the page now, what do you think I should get? Can you guess? Of course, part 1. Why? Because simply what I did here is, let me just close this one so you can see better. If you look at this, I have by default, I said if the part is now passed, make the part 1. So it simply goes to the very first if statement and run that part and print the part 1. I can go ahead and pass the part parameter, this time part 2, part 3, and so on. Do you see that? So now that I have done this, I want to improve this code a little bit. So to see how we can optimize it, to have a better coding and with less maintenance, of course. Right now, if I want to change part to, let's say, section, I have to change it 4 times, right? So I want to optimize it anyway. So what I'm going to do is this. One way would be to go ahead and say, I'm going to create part text, right? I'll create a variable called it part text. And by default, I don't put anything for now, right? But here, instead of doing echo here, I'll go ahead and add part text is equal 1, right? Okay. And I'll do the same thing for the others too. So I'm going to close the next one, make this one part 2, right? and then I will comment the other one, part 3, and then finally I'll go to the very last one, close the echo, and put part 4, right? Okay, now when I get to the end of this if statement, I already know what part is this. So if I want to go ahead and show something like echo, so I'll go echo h1 tag, right? And I'll go ahead and say part and concatenation, and I just simply put the part text, right? So I will have the part at this moment, and I'm going to close the h1 tag. Let's see if this works, right? So if I go here, part 3, we should not see any differences, right? Now I can go to 2 if I want to, and it still works the same, correct? Now I can go ahead and remove the whole part, and still I get part 1, and that's the key. So I can still remove it and get first part. So this means I can simply go ahead and do some of the changes. For instance, I can go ahead here and say the default part is part 1, right? And simply comment the whole thing here. I don't really need this, right? And I start the if statement right from here. So if there is no part, by default part is 1. I have the text ready, so I don't even need the if statement anyway. And if it's part 2, then it's going to overwrite the part text to 2 or to 3 and to 4. Let's see if it changes anything, right? Let me save this, right? Now, if I go here, question mark, part 2, then I see part 2, right? So I have divided my page into different sections, and based on the parameter I send, I can change the view. Now in this case, just imagine you have a page with 4 workflows: 1 add, 1 views, 1 updates, 1 deletes, right? Still, you can simulate this only with 1 page by passing the part parameter or option parameter and some other necessary parameters that you might need to continue or complete an operation. Now what I want to do is I want to write a loop to actually create the part for me. So what I'm going to do here is I would say max pages, right? So is equal 3. So I want to have only let's actually 4 pages, right? Or 4 part. Max, let me call it parts, right? Max part is 4. So what I want to do is I want to create a pagination so I can simply move to the other part of the page without changing the URL. So let's do that. So I'm going here and I will go ahead and say while, let me see what I can do here. I have to create an index, so I will create an index. I'll call it current index. Keep in mind I could call it I, but I'd rather to have a better name so it indicates what this variable does, right? So I'm going to make it 1, right? So that's a current index, and I will say go ahead and say current index, right, is less than max parts, right? While current incident is less than or equal, because I want to have 4 as well, right? If it is less than or equal, right, do this. And simply what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go inside the loop, right? And I will echo, okay, the current index. Now, keep in mind, I just printed for now to make sure we have a proper value, right? Let me see what I have here. While current index, okay, that's good. So I'm just printing this for now, right? Let me go ahead and put some kind of pipe in between so we can separate the value for now. Let's go ahead and see what do we see here, right? Oh, I have an infinite loop, right? I forgot to update the current index. So what I have to do here, right in here, I can go ahead and say current index plus plus. Okay, let's do it one more time. Here you go. You see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I'm trying to do here is when you click on 1, I want to go to part 1, 2 to part 2, 3 to part 3, and so on, right? So in order to do that, I have to create a link. Okay, let's do that. What I'm going to do here is I'll go ahead and say, I'll call it part link, right? And right in here, I'll go and create my href. Now, keep in mind, the file name, in this case, is f1.php, right? Oh, sorry. Let me just close this. Okay. So I have href equal h1.php, which is the current file, right? Or as a matter of fact, I should be able to do that, right? And I'll go and say part is equal, right? What should be the part? Current index. Okay. I close this and I close that, and I will just simply go ahead and print the current index as well. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see if that makes sense. I'm going to put the pipe here too. I'm going to close the echo or comment the echo. So let's see how it works. I'm going to do this one in. So I simply have to go ahead now and do the print. Print part link. Okay, let's see. So I have all the links. Clicking on this, it should simply take me to a different part of the page, right? So it is a very basic PHP script that allows you to divide your page into multiple parts, but at the same time, it shows you how to optimize your code, how to create the pagination, how to pass the parameters, creating the parameter list or the links using a loop, right? I hope you enjoyed the video, and that's all. Thank you.